Good day to all of you. I am Maria Minhirai. Together with my partner, Miss Melanie Lu, will present to you the chapter 11, which is all about language acquisition in children. In this chapter, you are going to learn how children develop the ability to understand and use language. Some background concepts. According to Bertrand Russell, how comes it that human beings whose contacts with the world are brief and personal and limited are nevertheless able to know as much as they do? Language development occurs in all children with normal brain function, regardless of race, culture, or general intelligence. In other words, the capacity to acquire language is the capacity of the human species as a whole. That's why it is important that at an early stage, the child should be given attention to whether he or she can acquire the ability to learn or adapt a language. Because if not given attention, there is a chance that he or she will have speech impediments or speech disorder. Any theory of language acquisition must account for what children do and do not do in the course of achieving adult linguistic competence. On the one hand, small children produce expressions that do not occur in adult speech. On the other hand, they do not produce ill-formed expressions that one might think they would. Consider the following examples from Pinker on 1990. 1. A. John saw Mary with her best friend's husband. B. Who did John see Mary with? C. John saw Mary and her best friend's husband. D. Who did John see Mary and? In 1B, the position corresponding to her best friend's husband in 1A is questioned, and the resulting double-edged question is fine. By contrast, in 1D, the position corresponding to her best friend's husband in 1C is questioned, and the resulting double-edged question is ungrammatical. Interestingly, children do not produce ill-formed sentences like 1D, whereas they do produce well-formed sentences like 1B. And why do young people typically produce the word break, for example, as opposed to broke? Break, not to be confused with breaked, is not the past tense form of break in the adult grammar of speakers of English. Here are some other examples noted by Pinker. 2. A. I buyed a fire dog for $1 million. B. Hey, Horton heard a who. C. My teacher holded the baby rabbits and we patted them. D. Daddy, I stilled some of the people out of the boat. E. Once upon a time, an alligator was eating a dinosaur, and the dinosaur was eating the alligator, and the dinosaur was eaten by the alligator, and the alligator good kerplunk. How can this pattern of behavior be accounted for? We will look at two rather different approaches to answering this important question. How important is the environment in language acquisition? The first approach we will consider is behaviorism. Behaviorists, most notably B.F. Skinner, assert that the behavior of an organism can be accounted for by theories based solely on observing its interaction with the environment. Under this view, the child is endowed at birth with general learning abilities, but not with any language-specific knowledge. Linguistic behavior is molded, that is, externally reinforced, by adult speakers. A child learning a language is corrected when wrong and rewarded when right. And imitation plays an important role. Children are viewed as imitation others' speech. This approach emphasizes the role of reinforcement and punishment in shaping behavior, proposing that individuals learn through the consequences of their actions. Because children imitate what they hear and see around them without questioning whether the words are good or negative. Guardians are crucial in helping them form excellent life skills early on. Directly opposed to the behaviorist position is an alternative approach proposed by Noam Chomsky. Chomsky argues that language acquisition cannot be accounted for without positing a linguistically specific system of principles and parameters that every healthy, in the relevant sense, child is genetically endowed with, a system he refers to as universal grammar, or UG, or as the language acquisition device, also known as LAD. Chomsky argues that an account of language acquisition constrained by behaviorist principles falls short for many reasons. One must keep in mind that the linguistic data that the child is exposed to are streams of sound, or hand gestures in the case of American Sign Language, that may consist of one or more words during any given acoustic event. The acquired grammar is, then, underdetermined by the data, for example, streams of sound, available to the child. According to Chomsky's hypothesis, is that there are inborn structures in our brain, or the LAD, a natural propensity to organize the spoken language that we hear in various grammatical ways. Without that, we couldn't get started as language learners. Although adults often imagine that they are teaching children how to speak, there is no convincing evidence that children need such instruction. Indeed, as many a parent has discovered, the attempt to instruct children in language can produce frustrating results. Just like this example. 3. Child, I take a cookie. Parent, oh, you mean you took a cookie? Child, yes, that's right, I take it. A striking example of the insufficiency of overt instruction in facilitating language acquisition can be gleaned from the following story offered by a 4-year-old boy. The story is accompanied by the picture in figure 11.1. You can see the picture on the right side, figure 11.1. It shows Nicholas's picture. One day, the dog ate his food, and the rooster ate his food, and then the duck did. Then the hay got into the hay potter, and the hay potter put the hay where it belonged. First, note the novel word hay potter, which the child did not learn from adult speech, but simply made up himself. Next, note his use of pronouns, both present and absent. In the first sentence, he uses the possessive pronoun his twice, to refer first to the dog and then to the rooster. We understand that the duck is eating his own food too, as illustrated in the picture, not the dog's or the rooster's. Even though the child does not use an overt possessive pronoun in that case, in fact, the child has produced an example of what the linguistics literature terms sloppy identity. There is nothing sloppy about the construction itself. In fact, it involves mastery of a structure whose properties are not at all transparent. Most speakers are totally unaware of these properties and are certainly in a position to explain to the child that, for example, the sentence, Mary loves her cat and Susie does too, is ambiguous between Susie loves Mary's cat, the strict identity case, and Susie loves her own cat, the sloppy identity case. And in order for the hearer to get the sloppy interpretation, the abstract possessive pronoun has to be able to be a bound variable. Another mechanism that is important in the behaviorist theory of language learning, but in fact seems to play little or no role in a child's mastery of language, is imitation. Children are not taught how to produce such constructions indeed. Linguists are still trying to account for exactly how they work. Anyone who has studied child language or has observed children can recount examples such as the following. 4. A. Parent, did you like the doctor? B. Child, no, he took a needle and shotted my arm. Fifth example, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and crew have made a Death Star more powerful than the other two and have stolen a Star Destroyer. In part on the basis of these kinds of examples, Chomsky has concluded that children deductively arrive at a grammar that enables them to both produce and understand novel expressions. Let's move on to the early stages in the development of language. Studies of linguistic development have revealed that children pass through a series of recognizable stages as they master their native language. Although the age at which children will pass through a given stage can vary significantly from child to child, the particular sequence of stages seems to be the same for all children acquiring a given language. Here we will review some of the better-known stages of language development for children learning English. First is babbling. Prior to the development of language, all children, regardless of the language they will ultimately learn, pass through a stage referred to as babbling. In this stage, which begins at around 5 to 6 months, the child utters sounds and sound sequences, syllables such as ba, ma, ga, that are as yet meaningless but nevertheless recognizable as being more language-like than earlier infant cries. It has been argued, however, that babbling is not unrelated to the development of linguistic abilities. The fact that all children, including the congenitally deaf, go through a babbling stage, regardless of language or culture, and make very similar kinds of sounds at this time suggests that humans are biologically predisposed to go through this phase. Babbling is a stage of early language development when baby makes consonant vowel or vowel consonant sounds, such as ma, da, or Repetitive babbling occurs next, for example, ma, ma, ma. Finally, baby will combine a variety of sounds, that is ma, ba, ga, which is called variegated babbling. Next is the one-word stage. The babbling phase, which lasts for some 6 to 8 months, gradually gives way to the earliest recognizable stage of language, often called the one-word stage. At some point in the late part of the first year of life, or the early part of the second year, children begin using recognizable words of their native language. These words are usually the names of familiar people, animals, and objects in the child's environment. Mama, dada, kitty, doggy, ball, bottle, cat, and words indicating certain actions and demands. More, no. Viewed from the perspective of adult grammar, the kinds of words that occur at this stage include simple nouns and verbs. There are as yet very few so-called function words, prepositions, articles, auxiliary verbs, interrogative words in the child's language. In this stage, they may also use gestures to supplement their communication. Next to the one-word stage is the multi-word stage. At some point during the second year of life, the child's utterances gradually become longer, and the one-word stage gives way to multi-word stages. In general, the multi-word stages we will describe here begin roughly in the second half of the child's second year and extend roughly to the child's fifth year. Although age varies, the particular sequence of stages described below is quite similar for all children. As you can see here, table 11.1, these are the common types of utterances found in the early multi-word stage from Foss and Hayes in 1978. You can see here the semantic characterization, syntactic characterization, forms, and examples. First, semantic characterization is denomination, or the naming and noticing. Its syntactic characterization is existential, and its forms are here, theirs, this, that, it, see, hi, and it will be added to noun. Its examples will be their book, that car, see doggy, hi spoon. The next semantic characterization is the possession, and its syntactic characterization is the noun phrase. And its forms are noun plus noun and pronoun plus noun. Its examples are my stool, baby book, mommy sock. The third semantic characterization is the attribution, and its syntactic characterization are noun phrase or predicate adjective. The forms of noun phrase is the adjective plus noun, and its examples are pretty boat, party hat, big step. And then the other syntactic characterization of attribution is the predicate adjective, and its forms are noun plus adjective and pronoun plus adjective. And its examples are carriage broken, that dirty, mommy tired. Next semantic characterization is the plurality, and its syntactic characterization is the noun phrase. And its forms are quantifier plus noun. Examples: two cup, all cars. And the fifth semantic characterization is the actor action. Okay, and the syntactic characterization of actor action are subject plus predicate, and then predicate. Okay, so the first subject plus predicate, its forms are noun plus verb, and its examples are Bambi go, mommy push Catherine, airplane by. The next subject plus predicate is noun plus noun, and its examples are mommy wash jacket, Louis play baby record. And the last syntactic characterization of actor action is the predicate, and its forms are verb plus noun. Examples: pick glove, pull hat, helping mommy. As shown in table 11.1, during the early multi-word stage, at roughly the two-word stage, children began to express a variety of grammatical and conceptual relations. It is during this stage that children learning English begin to use word order to indicate certain relations. Another semantic characterization is the location. And under location are first, object location, and its syntactic characterization are subject plus prepositional phrase, and its forms are noun plus prep P. Examples: sweater chair, lady home, baby room. And another location is the action toward location, and its syntactic characterization are verb plus prepositional phrase, and its forms are verb plus prep P. Examples: sat wall, walk street. Okay, and next semantic characterization is the requests and imperatives, and its syntactic characterizations are verb plus object, and then the quantifier plus object. Okay, the forms of verb plus object are the verb plus noun, and its examples are want milk and give me ball. And the next syntactic characterization of requests and imperatives are quantifier plus objects, and its forms are more plus noun and another plus noun. Examples: more nut, another milk. Okay, and the eighth semantic characterization is the negation. Under negation, there are three: the non-existence, rejection, and denial. Okay, so the syntactic characterization of non-existence is the negative plus sentence, or the neg plus sentence, and its forms are neg plus noun, neg plus verb, and neg plus adjective. And examples: all gone milk, no hat, no more light, any more play. Okay, Another semantic characterization of negation is rejection, and its syntactic characterization is the neg plus sentence. And its forms are neg plus verb and neg plus noun. And its examples are no dirty suit, no meat, no go outside. Okay. And the next semantic characterization of negation is denial. And its syntactic characterization is the neg plus sentence. And its forms are neg plus noun, neg plus verb, and neg plus adjective. And its examples are no morning, it was afternoon. No daddy hungry, no truck. Okay. And the last is the questions. Under questions, there are requests and imperatives and information requests. Okay, so the syntactic characterization of requests and imperatives is the yes or no question. Okay, same word order as the statements and imperatives, signaled only by rising intonation. And the next questions is the information requests, WH question. Fixed forms with WH. What that, what and do, what and go. All of these are common types of utterances found in the early multi-word stage. We also have here the table 11.2, wherein it is the development of negative sentences and questions in child language, adapted from Foss and Hayes in 1978 and Clark 1977. Okay, so you can see here the different stages. The one-word stage, early multi-word stage, and later multi-word stage. Okay, you can also see here their negative sentences, questions such as yes or no questions, and WH questions. Okay, so first we have the one-word stage. Okay, so it's negative sentences wherein negation expressed by single negative word, no, all, get. And it's yes or no questions, questioning indicated by intonation and or context. Okay, and the next stage is the early multi-word stage. And its negative sentences are negative word occurs at beginning of expression, does not occur between other words. No eat, no sit down, organ milk, no hot, no mommy go. And its yes or no questions are auxiliaries have not developed. No inversion of word order. Only intonation is used. That mine, see baby, drink mama. And its WH questions, very limited, where and what are predominant forms used at beginning of expressions. Where doggy, where daddy go, what that. Okay, and the next stage is the later multi-word stage. And its negative sentences, negative word occurs inside expression between subject and predicate. Negative auxiliaries can't and don't appear. There no milk, he not big, mommy no play, I can't do that, I don't know him. Okay, and it's WH questions, or the yes or no questions. Continued use of intonation, no inversion of word order. Auxiliaries do not yet occur in positive sentences. You can't fix it. She no play. See doggy. Dolly go boom. Okay, and then it's WH questions. Additional WH words developed to include why. No inversion of word order. Why mommy go? What Dolly do? What kitty sleep? Okay. Another negative sentences of later multi-word stage are wider range of negative auxiliaries appears. Auxiliaries begin to appear in positive as well as negative sentences. I didn't do it. He doesn't like it. I'm not a baby. I won't read a book. Mommy can find Dolly. And its yes or no questions are auxiliaries begin to appear in positive sentences. Inversion of auxiliary appears. Can't you get it? Will you help me? Did you see him? And its WH questions are additional WH words developed to include how. Is still no inversion of word order. what she did, why doggy run, what he can do, how she can do that. Okay, so the above examples, though brief, illustrate the fact that children develop their native language in a sequence of identifiable stages. Further, we can see that specific constructions of a language develop in an interrelated way. The development of negative sentences and questions in English is intimately connected with the development of the auxiliary verb system. Is there a language acquisition device? In this section, we will examine data and analysis that linguists have marshaled to support the LAD view of language acquisition. We will review studies in the areas of phonetics or phonology, morphology, syntax, and pragmatics. Throughout this discussion, we must keep in mind the question of the balance between what aspects of a child's native language acquisition crucially depend upon modeling adult behavior, what aspects are attributable to the child's own inner resources, example and LAD. Let's have first the acquisition of phonetic or phonological principles. Infants appear to be able to discriminate differences in sounds independent of their ultimate role in a language's phonemic pattern. Moreover, initial evidence suggests that if an infant, some of the test subjects are as young as 6 months, learns a contrast, such as voicing, in a pair of consonants, such as D and T, the infant's ability to distinguish this contrast can be carried over to other pairs of consonants, such as G and K. Gherkin, 2007, 176 to 177. Okay, let's have this example. Father, say jump, son. Duck. Father, no, jump, son. Duck. Father, no, jump, son. Only daddy can say jump. The collective results of Wellman et al. In 1931, Templin 1957, and Olmsted 1971, as cited by Owens in 1984, revealed that sounds classed by manner of articulation are acquired in roughly the following order: nasals, glides, stops, liquids, fricatives, and finally affricates. Sounds classed by point of articulation are acquired in the order: labials, velars, alveolars, dentals, palatals. Owens on 1984, 179. Therefore, M, which is a labial nasal, is expected to be among the first consonants acquired, and the affricate J is expected to be one of the last. As exemplified in the sixth example, small children are unable to produce all the sounds of their native language with equal facility. Individual case studies of children's pronunciation of words, see example Smith 1973, reveal many examples of substitution. That is, a child often substitutes one sound in a word for another. For example, can is pronounced ten instead of can, fronting. Light is pronounced yite. A liquid is replaced by a glide. This becomes dis. A fricative is replaced by stop. Glove becomes wom. M is substituted for V, maintaining the labial feature. Okay, so we have here examples: knife, mic, nipple, nibo, stop, bop, table, bibo, room, mom, rubber, bubba. Another is shopping, robin, zebra, bubba. Man, on 1985-82, notes that her subject, Daniel, replaced initial label stops with G when the word ended with a velar stop. Okay, so we have here examples: bug, gug, big, gig, book, gook, bike, gike, pig, gig. This data reveal that children do not substitute randomly in pronouncing words that are hard for them. Rather, their substitution appears to be sensitive to properties of the syllable as well as to the properties of the segments in the word. Now let's move on to the acquisition of morphology. In this realm of morphology, as well, there is evidence that children develop creative principles, in this case for word formation. A commonly cited piece of evidence for this is the phenomenon of overgeneralization, in which it is claimed the child extends a rule-governed patterns to forms that do not follow the rule. See Irvin 1964, Slaby 1971. For example, the regular past tense in English is formed by adding the suffix ed to the verb stem. Talk, talked. In this regard, the form shotted cited in 4b provides a particularly interesting example. Here, the child has created a new verb, presumably the verb to shot, which is probably a denominational verb based on shot, a noun meaning hypodermic injection. The verb to shoot already existed in a child's vocabulary and was used exclusively in situations involving toy guns and playing dead. However, there are numerous verbs in English with irregular past tenses, such as take, took, break, broke. A child who says taked is overgeneralizing the rule for the regular past tense by using the regular past ending with an irregular verb. One explanation for the error is that the child has mastered a rule for forming the regular past tense. Now, the English plural. In a well-known experiment involving English morphology, Burko, 1958, provided nonsense words to children aged 4 to 7 and asked them to give a variation of each nonsense word reflecting certain morphological properties, such as the plural morpheme. For example, children were presented with test frames like the following. This is a wow, accompanied by a picture of an imaginary bird-like animal. Now there is another one. There are two of them, accompanied by a picture of two of the imaginary animals. There are two. Okay. So the idea is to provide the plural form of the nonsense word wag. If children have mastered a rule for forming plurals, they should be able to answer wags. Next, compounds. A study carried out by Gordon in 1985 provides compelling evidence for positing specific morphological principles as part of an LAD. Gordon's results bear on whether or not there is psychological evidence based on acquisition for a particular linguistic theory of word formation, namely the level ordering hypothesis proposed by Kiparsky in 1982. According to the theory, the formation of complex words is constrained by the individual properties of three levels of word formation, see figure 11.2, plus a restriction on the interaction of these levels. Okay, so as you can see here, we have figure 11.2. This is all about Kiparsky's level ordering hypothesis. So we have there the root word, example Darwin, and level 1, class 1 affixes, example iron, and irregular inflection, example geese, men. Level 2, class 2 affixes, example ism, and compounding. And level 3, regular inflectional affixes, example past tense, ed, plural s. Level 1 is where the revisional affixes of class 1 are attached to a root or base morpheme. The revisional affixes applying at level 1 affect the phonology of the sound sequence they attach to. For example, in the word Darwin, stress is on the first syllable, Darwin. When iron is attached, stress shifts to the second syllable from the left, yielding Darwinian. Thus, iron qualifies as a level 1 affix. Level 2 includes both compounding, example loudspeaker, and the revisional affixes that do not affect the phonology of the sound sequence to which they attach. For example, ism is a level 2 affix. When it attaches to Darwin, the stress remains on the first syllable, Darwinism. Level 3 is where the inflectional affixes, example tense, plurality, are added. Morphologically complex words are structured in such a way that level 1 affixes are innermost, level 2 affixes medial, and level 3 affixes outermost in the word. The following constraint is crucial. The output of level 3 word building cannot be the input to either level 2 or level 1, and the output of level 2 cannot be the input to level 1. Thus, Darwinianism is fine where the output of level 1, Darwinian, is the input to level 2, the attachment of ism. But Darwinismian is where the output of level 2 is the input of level 1 is hopeless. Next is the acquisition of syntax. Recursion. Turning now to syntax, consider that all native speakers of English have learned how to interpret expressions such as the following. Okay, A, the child. B, the child who is reading the book. C, the child who is reading the book which was written by Dr. Seuss. Such examples show that it is impossible in principle to have been exposed to, much less memorize, all the expressions of a language. This is more yet evidence that we have mastered rules or principles, not simply individual expressions, that allow us to associate sound and meaning for a potentially infinite set of expressions. The syntactic rules of English allow us to add modifiers to noun as shown in 11. And no matter how long such phrases were to become, at no point could we say that they violated the rules of English syntax, even if such phrases were stylistically awkward or difficult to comprehend because of performance factors. Okay, let's move on to the yes or no questions. Crane and Nakayama, 1987, 542, demonstrate that hypotheses based on serial order, akin to hypothesis 2 in chapter 5, are not entertained in children's formation of the rule of subjects or AUX inversion, and that only structure-dependent rules are formulated in language acquisition. Recall examples such as 12AB, Crane and Nakayama's 5. Okay, example A. The man is tall. B. Is the man tall? A rule for forming yes or no questions that simply stated, identify the first verb and move it to the beginning of the sentence, would work in the case of 12, but would predict both 13A and 13B. Okay, so here is another example. A, the man who is tall is in the room. B, is the man who is tall is in the room? Children do not produce questions like the ill-formed 13B. Therefore, it appears that children know that structure and not just the more salient linear order property of sentences is relevant in the formation of yes or no questions. Next is the C command and control. In this section, we will see yet again that the principle based on linear order is insufficient when accounting for the acquisition of a complex syntactic construction. In this case, a construction involving control to be discussed below. Indeed, children appear to make use of an abstract structural relation, C command, when interpreting control structures. Consider the following sentences from Chomsky, 1969. Okay, so we have here examples. In 14, A, John wanted Bill to leave. B, John begged Bill to leave. C, John expected Bill to leave. And 15, A, John wanted to leave. B, John begged to leave. And C, John expected to leave. So in 14A to C and 15A to C, the subject of the verb leave does not appear overtly in the embedded clause. In 14A to C, Bill is syntactically the object of wanted, begged, and expected, respectively. That is, it is an NP or the noun phrase immediately dominated by VP or the verb phrase. It is also the understood subject of leave. In these cases, the object NP, Bill, controls the subject argument of leave. When want, beg, and expect do not have an object NP, as in 15A to C. then it is their subject that controls the subject argument of live. This distribution can be characterized in terms of minimal distance principle, or the MDP. As cited by Chomsky in 1969, the implicit subject of the complement verb live is the NP, most closely preceding it. Chomsky demonstrates that children between the ages 5 and 10 appear to be following the MDP, even when to do so yields the wrong interpretation. Okay, so consider the 16A to be from Chomsky on 1969. Okay, so here's the example of 16. A. Donald tells Buzu to lie down. B. Donald promises Buzu to lie down. 16A follows the MDP. Bozo is understood as the controller of the subject argument of lie down, but 16B yields a different result. Donald and not the closer LP, Bozo is the controller. The difference between 16B and the examples in 14, 15, and 16A is due to the verb promise. The control properties of promise are not determined by the MDP. Chomsky tested children examples like 16A and B and found some interesting results. The children clustered into 4 groups, which Chomsky characterizes as reflecting 4 stages in acquisition. See table 11.3. So it will be discussed to you further by my partner, Miss Melanie Lu. Okay, that's all of my part. Thank you for listening. Good day.
Good day, everyone. I am Melanie Arlo, the second reporter for the language acquisition for the children. This is the continuation of the first reporter, so 11.3. In stage 1, we have 10 children. Tell is also all correct. Promise is all wrong. Assigned NP2 as subject throughout. Boy is 5.0. 5.1, 5.3, 6.10, 7.6. In girls, we have 6.5, 6.6, 7.1, 8.7, and 8.10. In stage 2, we have 4 children. Tell equals to mix. The promise is mix. Assign both NP1 and NP2 as subject following both words. So in boys, 6.9. In girls, 5.1. 5.3 and 6.9. So in stage 3, tell is equals to all correct. Promise is mixed. So we have 5 children here. So assign NP2 as subject consistently following tell and both NP1 and NP2 following promise. So boys, 8.2. 9.2 and 9.7. In girls, we have 6.5 and 8.8. In stage 4, we have 21 children here. So the tell is supposed to all correct. Promise is all correct. Assigned NP2 as subject following tell and NP1 following promise. In boys, we have 5.2, 5.2, 5.3, 5.10, 6.7, 7.3, 7.9, 8.4, 8.5, 8.8, 9.7, 9.8, and 9.9. In girls, we have 7.0, 7.0, 7.2, 8.6, 9.1, 9.8, and 10.0. So, incorrect interpretations are the stages 1, 2, and 3. So, assign wrong subjects as indicated. So, the correct interpretation here is the stage 4. Assigns NP2 following tell, NP1 following promise. We have here figure 11.4. So, the speaker has a multi-dimensional image of what he wants to say and wants to communicate this image to his friend. So, his image has to be serialized into speech sound arranged in such a way that the content of his image can be transmitted to his friend. So, the rule of transmission that allow for his friend to hear and decode the string of sound is grammar. So, every language has its own grammar at one level of analysis, but as linguists, have shown us there is a deep structure to the grammar that is common across all languages. Let's come now to the acquisition of pragmatic competence. So, pragmatic language is defined as a complex and uniquely human skill that is embedded in children's daily experiences. It enables us, children and adults alike, to form relationships with one another, share experiences, and communicate our perspectives and attitudes about those experiences. Pragmatic language refers to the appropriate and effective use of language in interpersonal contexts and is central to children's ability to perform well at home, at school, and with peers. It can be distinguished from the structural aspects of language, which have traditionally been viewed as relatively independent of context, phonology, syntax, and semantics. Clearly, the environment plays a crucial role in acquiring communicative competence. If children did not at least witness how linguistic expressions are used, it is hard to imagine that they would know when it is and is not appropriate to use these expressions. Certainly, in the course of achieving grammatical competence, children are interacting with their environments in appropriate and inappropriate ways. Let's come now to the pragmatic language development infancy. So children use language to express their needs and wants, negotiate disagreements, participate in games, and engage in other communicative interactions with peers and adults. Basic pragmatic skills develop at a fairly early age but are refined and developed during pre-adolescence and adolescence, so that over time the child is able to participate in more social activities and become a full member of culture and society. Children's pragmatic competence, their ability to use language effectively, is developed and refined through participation in family, peer, and school interaction that serve as a means and motivation for efficient and strategic language use. By examining both universal and culturally specific features of children's interaction skills, studies of pragmatic development aim to describe and detail how children learn to use language as an effective tool for social interaction. Next is, one of the basic rights of children is to have a family that takes care of their basic needs and provides them with affection and social support. So, when children learn a language, they need to learn more than phonology, semantics, and syntax. A proficient language user knows how to use language appropriately and strategically in social situations. Children need to learn pragmatic skills. So pragmatic is a social process of social development in which the knowledge necessary for successful interaction with others is required through language. So it is known as communicative competence. So they need to learn how to use language in interactions with peers, families, teachers, and others. Because this is also an ability not acquired suddenly. The child must develop skills such as the ability to process information from different sources and appropriate linguistic development, and the ability to respond to social demands. Between 9 and 18 months of age, the first milestone of PLD are reached, such as understanding the communicative intent of the speaker and the onset of joint attentional behavior. Toward the end of the second year of life, infants become more adept at identifying what others want, intend, and perceive. Meltzoff, using the behavioral imitation paradigm, found that 18-month-old infants will imitate an adult's action even if it fails, but will not repeat that action when performed by a mechanical device. So, this study and subsequent studies with some variations in experimental conditions showed that 18-month-old infants are able to recognize that people, but not animate things, have intentions and are able to infer the intentions of others. At the age of 2, children appear to be able to answer simple questions whose responses require only a single element, whereas at age 3, children are able to make comments and give responses that include both the predicate and the direct object. In addition, an increasingly ability to use complex contextual information is observed, which is reflected in 3-year-old children's ability to answer and formulate questions and comments. Next is as toddlers and preschoolers progress, pragmatic skills continue to develop, and children gain more advanced conversational skill and become socially competent speakers. 4-year-olds are able to adapt their own language to take into account the age, gender, and status of the listener. Thus, preschoolers start to formulate less polite and more direct requests when interacting with higher status speakers. Examples, parents and teachers. And more polite and indirect requests when interacting with lower status speakers. Example, friends. So let's come now to the pragmatic language development adolescence. As children enter adolescence, their growing social world both enables and pressures them to develop more sophisticated pragmatic skills. Experience with a greater variety of teachers and peers, exposure to more informations of language through reading and school, and participation in extracurricular activities motivate adolescents to take the perspective of others and use language strategically. During adolescence, language and pragmatics play a particularly important role in identity formation and modeling. Family conversations and narratives connect adolescents to their past and their culture. The appropriate use of current slang expressions and gestures typically of the peer group is crucial. These behaviors show solidarity with members of the groups to which the adolescents belong and clarify the adolescent's distinction from other groups and from younger children and adults. Is there a critical period for language acquisition? Language development takes place during a very specific maturational stage of human development. Sometime during the second year of life, at roughly anywhere from 12 to 18 months, children begin uttering their first words. During the following 4 to 5 years, linguistic development occurs quite rapidly. By the time children enter school, they have mastered the major structural features of their language. Refinements of the major features continue to appear, and the ability to learn language, one's native language or foreign languages, continues to be strong until the onset of puberty. At this point, for reasons that are not fully understood, the knack for languages begins to decline to a greater or lesser extent depending on the individual. The optimal period of time for language acquisition, 2 years to puberty, is sometimes referred to as the critical period. Lenneberg, 1967-178, notes that primary language cannot be acquired with equal facility within the period from childhood to senescence or old age. At the same time that cerebral lateralization becomes firmly established about puberty, the symptoms of acquired aphasia tend to become irreversible within about 3 to 6 months after their onset. Prognosis for complete recovery rapidly deteriorates with advancing age after the early teens. Limitation to the acquisition of primary language around puberty is further demonstrated by the mentally retarded who can frequently make slow and modest beginnings in the acquisition of language until their early teens, at which time their speech and language status becomes permanently consolidated. So these observations are consistent with the view that there is a biologically determined critical period for language acquisition. Language development in children has focused on two important and intimately interconnected properties of human language. First, it is highly structured. Human masters a highly complex system in order to use expressions of their native language. Second, it is creative. That is, humans spontaneously produce and understand expressions they have never encountered before in their linguistic experience. These are both properties that have been stressed in putting forth the claim that the human linguistic capacity is unique. So, in conclusion, from this point of view, all children are biologically programmed with the capacity to develop language, namely the languages that they are significantly exposed to during the appropriate maturational stage. Language development can thus be regarded as analogous to other biological developments in human growth and maturation. In this way, the traditional view that language is unique to human beings may in fact have a sound biological basis. Is the human linguistic capacity unique? Children and primates compared. Primates have often been compared with children with respect to the acquisition of language, yet the contrast between the two is striking. Young children acquire complicated linguistic systems apparently effortlessly, whereas primates have required massive training efforts to master quiet, rudimentary communication systems. Humans, after all, are predisposed to learn language, whereas chimpanzees and gorillas are not. From this perspective, comparing children and primates with respect to the language development is quite instructive, and the contrast between the two serves to clarify the nature of the task that children carry out in mastering their native language. Principles and parameters. We have reviewed numerous reasons for concluding that the child has special capabilities for acquiring a language, and we have noted the proposal that children are endowed genetically with universal grammar or the language acquisition device, which is said to account for these capabilities. Chomsky proposes that universal grammar or language acquisition device consists of a set of innate principles and parameters that are universal at what he calls the innate state, the stage before the child begins to construct a specific grammar for the language he or she is exposed to. Note that this view has the consequence that all human languages are alike in a fundamental way. That is because all specific human languages are the product precisely of human speakers, whose genetic faculty for language, in the general abstract sense, example their universal grammar or learning acquisition device, is equipped with the same principles and parameters. All human languages incorporate the principles and parameters and thus share basic properties at an abstract level. The variety found in the world's languages, though not insignificant, is not relatively superficial. Okay, so that is all about our report in Chapter 11, Language Acquisition in Children. Thank you for your time in listening.